Yo, 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 what's goody? It's Bear in the building. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Kueen Talk. If you are new here, welcome. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe button, and let us know what you think of this episode. Also, check out the new revamped website, queentalk.com. I did a little something on there, so go check it out. Your picture might even be on there. But yeah, we got a very special guest today, locally in Wichita. It is the artistic Kate Harder. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Yes,
excited.
of course, of course. How you doing? You doing all right?
I would say with, how everything's going, not too bad. Not too bad. That's probably just like growth and just learning how to cope, but I would say pretty good.
I love that answer. That's great. That's a good one. Growth and knowing how to cope.
Ex
Yes.
Well, because like you don't want to do like a whole like, oh, everything's fine. What are you talking about? We
Mm-hmm.
need to acknowledge what's going on, but also like I'm not gonna be out here spiraling. That was years ago.
Yes, yes, yes. No, that's a great answer. If you want to just give the audience, let the audience know just your pronouns and how you identify in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I particularly use like they them pronouns, but I'm also one of those people where like if you say something else, I usually don't like react. As far as like within our community, the queer community, I will typically say that I do just identify as queer, just because I do feel like I fall into multiple sections, like specific letters, and so sometimes so it's just easier for me to just say queer instead of doing like all three or whatever. And then as far as racially, I'm going to identify as biracial, which is two or more races. And usually that satisfies whenever people ask me.
You said usually that satisfies. Um,
Usually, if you're just like, yeah, I'm biracial, most of the time people are fine. You do get those people that are like, oh, well, which races? And it's like, I mean, we can go from there, but at that point, they're just like, it's the morbid curiosity more for them.
yeah. Yeah, well, I'm a nosy person, so we're gonna get into it
Yeah,
on
we're
Queen
gonna get
Tech.
into it.
We're gonna get into it on Queen Tech. That's one thing about me. Like, I'm kind of like a nosy person. I have to like watch myself too. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, not everyone wants to like disclose everything, but
I I mean, on my 9 to 5, no, I don't want to go into my family heritage. Like, it's kind of like,
right,
is it
yeah.
is it cash or card? Like, ma'am, this is a Wendy's.
For real though, no, I
Yeah.
get that 100%. I get that 100%. Have you always been raised in Wichita? Like, has Wichita where you grew up in?
Essentially, yes. If we need to go into the nitty-gritty, like there was a good portion where I was living in Andover, but like I feel like if someone from, California, New Jersey or something like that, Wichita, like that's essentially how I explain it. Like I was born in Newton, and like as a very tiny, tiny baby, that's where I lived.
Oh
But it's
man,
like
so did you hear the
fairly
news in
local.
Newton? Did you hear the news in Newton, like the stuff lately with
I think I've been hearing like people, because where I work, there are some people that kind of come from that area, so I've definitely heard like some whisperings. It's been
yeah,
like in passing, but I've heard like something's but obviously
uh,
it's been going on.
yeah. Well, shout out Bethel College because they're doing a drag show there, and what they do it for,
Really,
yeah, you're right, at Bethel
that's
College.
so crazy to hear.
Yeah, and they do it. They do it every year, I guess. But this year they put it on Facebook as an event, and when you do that, like
Oh,
it's to the public. Then the haters seen it. They try to
yeah.
protest, but there's a lot of people like there in support. So it was
That's
nice to see, and it's nice to see that Bethel College.
it's some form of
Yeah,
private. So
yeah, it's a religious
you
school of some sort, though.
yeah, so that's insane.
Yeah,
I mean, but like good for them. I think that's if anything, I know like we hear a lot about, there's a lot of headlines that I think make a lot of people scared, but I feel like something like that, especially in a town like that, for a
yeah,
college like that, that's
right.
super encouraging, I think.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it just shows like we're still going to show the representation. We're still going to be out here.
Exactly.
We're going to be visible. Like there are places for us still.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you said
Which
Newton, but Wichita is like home for you. Where'd you go
yes.
to school out here?
So I a lot. So
Okay.
I elementary school was through the Wichita school districts. I started like in Minnehaha. Uh, the For various reasons, our family then moved us out to the Circle District, which, for those who don't
Mm.
know, that one, I believe it's like one of the largest school districts based on the land that it covers, as far as like
Circle?
students that, yeah, Circle Towanda, like because you have
Tawanda?
Towanda for the high school, then you have Benton for the middle school, and then you have students. There's one school that like is essentially in El Dorado, and then like
Yeah, Oil Hill.
2012, yeah, that's the one. And then in there's one that's in Wichita, Greenwich, that was like established in 2012-ish. And
I
so
never knew that.
because of all of those places, technically like the most do like it just covers most of the land. So it's not
Yeah,
the
that
biggest
makes sense.
school, it
Right.
just covers the most.
Yeah. I
So
they
I
were our rivals.
Oh yeah, which
El
school did you
Dorado.
go to? El
El
Dorado. Yep,
Dorado.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was all the way until my senior year, and then my senior year I finished out in at Andover High School.
Okay. So those schools that you went to, so Circle, um, is predominantly a white school. So how was your experience there?
It was That's definitely like when it comes to like talking about my impact of like growth and like racial identity, like a lot of those stories come from there. Um, because it is a predominantly white school, and the older, like, once I got to high school in Towanda, I think that was like where most of the struggle was. I mean, you got people slinging racial slurs. Um, there was uh, there was one time it was very impactful for me. It was my freshman year of high school. It was the first football game, home game. And of course, there's always, those themes that the student section always tries to participate in. And so this first one was whiteout. And then I remember as we're all coming back from lunch, this one guy, he's talking about what he's going to wear. He's like, yeah, I'm going to do like this, and this, or I'll just wear like a KKK uniform. Everyone else in the classroom was just like, why did you say that? Like, what the heck? And so they were, and like people were all looking at me because I was the only person of color in this room, and he felt like embarrassed at that time, as he should. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was something that I actually brought up because I met him like years after that,
Oh,
like, so, and I was just like, yeah, I remember you. I remember when you had said that, and he was super embarrassed.
jeez.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. My head was like, man, I wonder if you looked him up on Facebook right now. I was like, I wonder if he has like a Make America Great Again freaking
I
profile picture.
I would wager so. I mean, it's hard to tell with that family specifically. I would put my money on yes, just
Well, I'm
because
glad
like,
you called him out on it years later. Like that's good on you. And I'm sorry that
yeah.
was your experience because like I know what it's like. We like I said, they're our rivals. So
Yeah.
and also just like within the towns, like we'd show up at parties or something. So I already
Mm.
know like how they perceive to be, and like I've got some stuff said to me too, but um, they got repercussions when they said something to me
Oh yeah,
or anyone
good.
around me. But you in that environment, you can't do that. So you gotta just like what do
What
you
do
do?
you
But
do exactly?
what
Because
do
it's
you?
like it's no, it's a really good question, and it's something that I even think about to this day. But it's like anytime I think, it's like, well, I'm gonna like either get like smart back with them or something like that. It's like, but they had guns, and that was not a secret. Some of them literally would have like their hunting guns in their truck. I think someone had like gotten in trouble because police were trying to school police were trying to find a separate type of issue, and then someone like they found all these people's guns that were just in their truck. So it's like you really can't. It's definitely, you feel the need to be in a constant fight or flight almost, but like the answer has to be flight.
Yeah, I used you like that happens even today. Like, yes, this was in high school, the scenario that we're talking about, but even
Right.
today, like the microaggressions that you might hear, whether it's at work or just like out, and you want to say something, but sometimes like I even just like not this one. Like I'm just gonna. It's
Right.
but like I want to say something because like I'm like feeling it inside, so I want you to feel understand like how I'm feeling in the moment. But like there's some situations where it's like okay, I guess I'll just let this one go, or and that's what I feel like I'm doing, and so like they're getting away with it, but
Right. It's like you want to be like the guiding, maybe like the guiding light of being like, hey, this is wrong, this is why it's wrong, or it's like, hey, or being like, hey, you've hurt my feelings, like you need to do better. But then it's also just like, I don't know how much, like, I'm like, in a way, I'm not solely responsible for your sensitivity. Like, you had so many people in your lives, and you probably had people that looked like us or, similar, that probably would have been the people to tell you. I mean, it's more than likely someone has told them. They just chose not to listen, right?
exactly. I was just talking to one of my friends because on Facebook I used to have an old Facebook, but I just deleted it because I just had too many people on there from like my old days. There was some circle
Hmm.
people on there, was some other. So it's like as soon as it was like when the first Trump election, like that's when I deleted my Facebook. I was just like, yeah, nope, not gonna deal with this. And just erase all those memories, all those friendships. So when I restarted my Facebook, I was very intentional on who's gonna be my friend request. Because I
Hmm.
feel like Instagram, you're following me, right? But when it says friend, you gotta be my friend. Like we're gonna talk if I see
Right.
you out. But my one of my friends from high school, she still has all those people. So she made a post about like what's going on. And then you had this one guy comment and it was like it was with the taking away funds for the mental health in school, and he was like, he said something to the lines of, I agree with this. I don't see anything wrong with it." And I texted a person. I was like, good on you for keeping these people on your profile because someone needs to tell them. Someone needs to show them the other side and fight back and respond back to these people. But I can't
Right.
even do it. Like, not on
True.
this. Like,
It's it's to a point where it's like it's also like you feel the pent up from all the times that you really wish you had said something it didn't for whatever reason. So it's almost like you almost feel like you're going to explode onto this one person. And it's like on one hand, it's not entirely fair to them to be like letting it out, but at the same time, it's it's still frustrating, and it's like I don't know. There's been so many times where I'm just like, it's like, what year is it?
yeah,
Like I get it. Like people are in, that's something that's always like mind boggled me. Like has left me mind boggled. It's just the idea of like, didn't we all go through the same schooling? Didn't we? Haven't we experienced like maybe we take things from those experiences differently, but haven't we all taken in like at least 70% of the same information or something like that? Like it's a,
hmm
I understand how they're different, but at the same time, it's like, how are you so ignorant to some of these issues, right?
but yeah, I don't know. I was again because we've been having a lot of conversations, just like in my group who I'm around. Because, like you said earlier, a lot's going on, and we're trying to cope and get through it and growth. But at the
Yeah,
same time, we have to have these conversations.
yeah.
And the people that voted for Trump right now, and like realizing the situations that are happening right now, I just and they still don't get it. Like you're still having to argue a point as to why
Hmm.
this person is not a good person. It's kind of the same thing that you're saying. We all went through the same schooling. We all got the same stuff. We're all seeing the same thing happen with this man. But yet, I don't understand why the people that are for this man still go for this man when it just human decency. Like I can't understand that. So it's like,
No, I'm right there with you. I have, I share this story now because it was just such a like a screenshot of kind of like of summing up that exact experience. I had this person, I was helping them, and they were talking about the current situation. This was probably a couple months ago, or like a month and a half ish. So essentially, the current administration's doing a lot of stuff. I think it was to a point where like the farmers were really struggling because there was like um, a big crackdown on like immigration. So I think that's kind of the mindset we were all in. And he's going ham against like the administration is like, well, these government people are being super greedy because all they want is their extra money. And so what they're doing is going to hurt all these other businesses. But then you have these bigger businesses, they're going to raise prices, maybe not necessarily even because they have to, but because they want to. And like almost perfectly like sketched out everything that was wrong with the current administration. Um, but meanwhile, he was all doing this with like a God, guns, and Trump hat on. And so,
Right.
and so he walks
It-
out, and we're just like, you were literally like this close. You were like standing on top of the answer, and you're still just like, and like it just wasn't quite getting it.
yeah, I I voted. I did my part. I'm continuing to do my part with spreading awareness of this community, and I'm trying to find other ways to like just encourage my friends to like vote for local, like, and stuff like that too, because like now it's what needed. And so yeah,
It really
it's a lot.
matters.
Yeah, it really does. But I this is a lot going on with the stuff. It was like it's, but I want to know more about you, Kate. I want to
Yeah.
know. That was your experience at in high school, which is unfortunate. Like that's it's literally so like I went to El Dorado, so like they weren't like that. I can say El Dorado was not like that in school at all.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that there wasn't people that were, but not near as close as it was to Circle.
Yeah.
Um, and so you said you went to Andover afterwards.
hmm
And was that like a better experience for you there, or was it pretty much the same?
With it only being like 1 year, like there's only so much you can judge on it, but it was exponentially better.
Good.
Um, there like I to be quite honest, like that at that point, my mental health was very, very low. Like, I tried to think. There are very few moments of my senior year that I do remember, but I can say with certainty there was not a lot of like racially charged incidents. Um,
Good.
there was one where like I had this moment where it's just like I was frustrated. I was frustrated at like the school like newspaper to a point where I went to the journalist teacher to be like I was irked for probably a little bit of no reason. Because it was like going over a survey of how much people spend on their hair products. And so it only had it divided by men and women. And then I was like, I was just frustrated because I was just like, I probably spend more, though, like more than the average, let's say, like woman, at the time because it's like my two products cost anywhere from $30 to $40, and we're talking just shampoo and conditioner. We're not talking about anything else at this point. It's like it costs a lot. And so I was frustrated, and I went and I was like, hey, this doesn't fully like break down all demographics. Because if you did, you would see that some people have to pay exponentially more for this type of projects just based on their race. It was something that turned out to be nothing because he was just like, oh, yeah, sure, I understand. And then kind of like thought maybe I was just taking some frustrations out. But at the time, um, I think I was just frustrated because, like, yeah, it does cost a little bit more to take care of my hair. And then as well as like, um, I believe at the time they still had my hair products put in the makeup section of like Walmart, so then you had to like check out, so then they
Yeah.
didn't think you were stealing.
Yeah. But no, I think that's a good point though. Just like, yeah, you might have came through it to approach the situation out of frustration. But at the same time, that's a valid argument, just because like hair products, just finding the right products for our own hair, like that's a
Yeah.
learning that process, like it is. But they, if you don't go through it, you don't
You don't know.
know.
You don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's and, like that whole journey, like my hair, because like throughout, it doesn't really happen anymore, but I think it's because we have extensive like sensitivity, just harassment training to like teach people not to do that. But it used to be, especially through like elementary school, middle school, part of high school, like people would love touching my hair. And like I like even teachers, I remember distinctly there was one time I had I had a teacher, like we're sitting at an assembly and I just so happened to be by her and she just starts touching like the baby hairs that were like on the back of my head. And like I'm very I was very sensitive. I probably still am. No one else has really touched my hair but me. So like I don't even know what it feels like, but it was just like it's not a shooting, it's not like an actual pain, but it's just like a jolt when someone would do it. And so I'd like try to get her to stop and she's like, "No, don't worry about it." And started touching it again. Even got another
Mm-mm.
teacher. I mean, I remember in middle school because for the longest time I was wearing my hair up, but because we were doing gym and we were taking doing showers, I let my hair down at one point to let it dry faster. And so then there was times where they would like a teacher, they would just start touching it, like students would just start touching it.
Yeah,
Um,
inappropriate, inappropriate.
yeah.
Don't. Yeah, it's like personal space. Like, don't even touch me at all. Like,
Well, exactly, but it was like I think they just felt like they felt entitled to touch it just because oh, it was something new, it was something different, it was something they've never seen before. Um, that's and that really impacted the way I kind of dressed myself up. I mean, when I started my first banking job, I was in an area of predominantly white people, and so I like would put my hair up always in a wrap, just so like I couldn't give them even the opportunity to touch it because I would get a lot of comments on it. But thankfully, I was far enough away. But I was like, okay, I need to get on top of this, and so that's why I would just like I would wrap it up. I would do very pretty wraps, so it was like nice to look at. It looked professional, but then again, no one could touch my hair.
yeah, that's wild. Like, you had
Yeah.
multiple people doing that too. Yeah, like I said, it's a good point that you make for sure when it comes to that. And you spoke about just like being out of frustration, and I feel like maybe like the frustration is just like not getting representation, like and
Yes.
being seen. And that's like that's all we want is just like representation and just like to be seen and valued.
Exactly. I think that's why when I'm now forgetting the year, I want to say it was like 2016, 2017. I really want to say like 2016, but when the first Black Panther movie came out,
Oh my gosh.
the
Wakanda forever.
yes. Oh my gosh. Like the impact that had not
Yeah.
just my life, but then other people, like other either African Americans, like was so impactful because it felt like for the first time we were seen as cool.
Hmm.
You know,
And
it was
royalty.
yes.
Royalty.
Like we had status. We were people to like, be like we could also be cool. We could be superheroes. We could be, royalty. It was just like that first time where like it was just something completely different. Because,
Hmm.
you think about maybe the one other time is like Princess and the Frog. Now I know it has its controversies, understandably so, but other than that, like that was kind of like, well, black people can be princesses too, in
Hmm.
the much more Disney fashion, but also kind of that hardworking. Like I like the movie, so but like that was years ago, and so then to
Right.
have this like modern take of like we are cool, our music is beautiful and stuff like that. It was just, and it was just very very affirming. And then like even at that time I was in circle, so to have that movie come out and then other people being like, yeah, hell yeah, Wakanda forever. Sorry,
Uh,
Wakanda forever.
yeah,
It was just really cool. I mean, we had one person that had a very strong African background, and he started wearing some of his traditional clothing to school because
that's dope.
he finally felt like people are gonna think, they're gonna think about that movie, which is so cool. I don't know. That was a very pivotal moment, I believe.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the fact that you were at Circle High during that time, that one shows your age. So you're still in your 20s, like 25. So
Yeah, I'd be 25 this year, so.
awesome, awesome. Uh, I I remember when I was 25. When did you come out when you were in Circle, like in high
Oh,
school? Like,
no, because I really didn't think I was. I was just, I was very much trying to fit the mold that was set for me,
mm,
since, early childhood. It's kind of like, okay, well, you're a woman, you're going to be a girly girl, and then you're going to graduate, you'll get a college degree, and then work and become a mom type of thing.
mm,
Um,
very
and
traditional, huh?
very, very, very traditional. And I think, and for me, like definitely the signs, like I think back, the signs were there. Like the signs were there. It's just I wasn't listening to them. I
What's your
was just more,
earliest memory of like that sign?
oh, probably there was a point when, I don't know why I had thought about this, but I was just like, I really just don't want to be an ant. Um, I was just like, I just don't like the sound of ant. Like, I feel like I give off the vibe of an uncle. And everyone was just like, okay, whatever. And so, like, I think about that and I think about, like, yeah, I think that was like maybe the earliest way where I externally was just like vocalizing this, like, I don't feel like a woman.
Yeah.
Um, or like, well, I had a lot of like
How old were
also
you during that time?
I would probably say like 12-ish.
Okay.
Um, and like I remember, I mean, probably 12-ish, hitting that, the changing of the body and everything. I was very, very much like, I don't like this. I did everything to like, keep the boulders like as flat as possible. I didn't want to like, um, didn't want anyone to think that I was this like woman. I didn't want to be perceived that way. Um, I mean, very early on, even before that, I didn't like wearing dresses. I didn't like how they made me feel. Um, it just didn't felt like me. And
Hmm.
so, um, I think there are still pictures of me like with dresses, and like every time I look at them now, I'm just like, I was really trying to be someone I was not.
Yeah, for sure. I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Trying to fit that mold, like you said, of who they want you to be. And that's a early member. Like 12 is like when you felt like, okay, that's interesting. I don't want to be uncle. So, and then like the earliest memory that you said, that was a young age that you felt
Yeah.
that way.
And I believe that's kind of the typical kind of turning point, but like also I believe in psychology. Now, I mean, I might be pulling this out of nowhere, but like a lot of people are like, well, it's change, and so naturally if you're going through puberty, you're going to have that initial setback, but then you're going to come into it and you're going to like flourish. And then that just never happened to me. There was a lot of things where people are like, you're going to feel weird about it now, but later you're going to be just fine. And then that never, never happened.
Yeah. And so when did you like say that okay, I'm queer? Like did you express that to your family, your friends? Like was there a comfort that when was that comfort for you to like tell someone that?
I think when it just became clear of like, oh, I guess I do resonate with this. Definitely, I was out of high school. I was in college. Um, and I think because they were putting us through like all that, like diversity, equity, and inclusion training and stuff like that, and just kind of like
When you went
also,
to college they did that?
Oh my gosh, yes. There's a freshman orientation where they force you to go. It's like randomly during the summer before you're actually like in classes. And so they go over a lot of different stuff. Like they go over like just campus safety, a lot of like extracurriculars that you could be part of, but there was like a whole section going over like diversity.
Did you stay at the dorms?
No.
Oh,
Uh,
I wonder if that was like a mandatory thing or something that it was.
yes, they definitely said they're
I
like,
was-
well, and I remember you had to pay for it too.
oh
I want to
gosh.
say it had to be paid for too, because it's
Mm,
like, well, you get this book for free, and it's like, well, no, I paid for the book.
mm,
Stop saying that I did this for free. But I'm pretty sure like I'm assuming it's similar to like, with your job, there like certain jobs they have annual trainings, courses that you have to go through to like be in compliance as an employee. I'm assuming they have to do something like that for like freshmen, and then they have like cuz like I'm pretty sure they still have like anti-harassment like online surveys that you still have to take every year as a student. So my assumption is
that
that they
yeah
just turned it to one like big seminar.
yeah that makes sense because especially since you said freshman, like yeah, knowing the do's, the ins and the outs, yeah, that makes
Hmm.
sense. But so in at WSU, like that's when you were comfortable and
I think so because I was like because I didn't necessarily was greatly exposed to the community. Obviously, it was just the school that I went to, for the majority of my primary education. But like I was always supportive of it. I mean, they were few and far between, but we had like openly gay and openly queer people at Circle.
hmm,
Um, so and it's like I mean, we weren't necessarily friends, but it's like I was a safe space for them. Like they didn't have to worry about anything with me, right?
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I was in theater, so like that's so like obvious, like not to be stereotypical, but we were a safe space.
yeah.
Um, but and so once I got to college, there was a lot more of like, areas specifically made for these communities. And it was just a little bit more education around, what does it mean to be a part of the LGBTQIA plus community? I mean, at the time, I feel like there was just in general a larger movement of just getting that visibility and doing it on the
Hmm.
campuses for people. So I think once I finally had that time to just kind of sit and think, not just what I wanted to do with my life, but just how I identify, I think it just came naturally where it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm not what everyone thought or everyone told me to be. I'm actually this. And then there came a point where like it was just a series of me sitting down and asking myself, okay, how do I feel? Like and then realizing, oh, I feel like this, and then it turning out like, oh, I do identify with this. Um, and that's with everything, like how I identify via my gender, my orientation. I that's just it was literally just me sitting down and then just realizing, oh, I'm just this, and then I was okay with it.
Yeah, and you mentioned you said at the beginning you were just like I identify as queer, and versus saying like I think you said three.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
What what do you mean by like those three that you mentioned?
So I definitely identify myself like in the gender sphere, I definitely see myself as much more internally, much more masculine. And that's something that I would like to eventually like have it externally represent. But I don't think I would fully put myself as like I just want to fully transition to be just a man, only a man. There are some moments where I do kind of incorporate maybe a more femininity side. So I kind of bounce between, okay, so we're probably looking at like transgender, um, I used to be like just say like just non-binary. So I feel like I'm probably a mix of the two depending on who I'm talking to. Because I feel like even within the community, I guess we'll have this conversation of kind of like, you know, I to some people I might be fulfilled in the transgender role, and then other people are going to say no, well you're just non-binary or something like that. So I kind of go
Hmm.
like, well, technically to the definitions I fall within both of those. I mean, if you ask me personally, I think I would um, consider myself more transgender because I do fall much more on the masculine side. And that's something that
Gotcha.
I do aim to go for.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I feel like it's just your journey though too.
Yes,
And it's like how you identify with yourself is how you identify. And
exa-
I feel like it's what how you feel. It's like how you said earlier, how do I feel? Um
exactly.
And I love that. And this is something that I have never told anybody but my partner. But I've just like recently been like talking about just like I just like been like asking the question. I was like, what would you do if like I just chopped titties off? Like, how would you feel about that? Like, she's like, I wouldn't care. Of course, we'd have to get some used to it. And I was like, yeah, I'd have to get used
Yeah,
to it too.
yeah,
But I'm just like, I'm tired of these bad boys. Like how you said, like you just like strap it down and make sure like they're just in the way. Um,
yeah.
so
With
and like I full heartedly like I'm a female, like I identify as female, but just like
yeah,
if I just want these cut.
just get caught up. No, I'm that way too. I was like that for a long time, especially once they got like really filled in like early on. I was just like, I don't want these. I don't want them. They're too much. I thought it was just because they were heavy, because sometimes I do when I be like laying down on my back or I like purposely lift them up. I'm like I feel a little relief, and I'm just like, oh, that's why. That's why they're physically like painful. But then I'm just like, but then I think I did my first like binder experience and like had the flat feeling. I was just like, oh no, this is also it's probably both, but it's like it's I definitely had that moment of like gender of like almost euphoria of just like, oh my gosh, there's not, it almost feels like there's nothing there.
I need
Like
to
there
try
was
one of
obviously.
those. I need to try one of those. Someone
Oh my
else told me
gosh.
about them, and I need to see about it. See
It
about it.
was it was great because like I put on a t-shirt and like usually the t-shirt like fits, but like it was the point because there was not like anything extra up here to have to worry about. I was like,
Yeah,
it like felt better. Um it's definitely something that I definitely want to do down the line. I know that's like a little expensive, and it's probably something that it's like is a couple of the things need to be in order before I try
yeah.
to do that, but it's
It is a
something where it's like
process.
yeah. But the
I
binder definitely, I think, like it helps on those difficult days where you just really want to like feel affirmed.
Definitely, definitely. And I've just had like a few guests on my podcast talking about just like the process of the surgery. And it is a process. First off, I don't know if you're a
Hmm.
nicotine smoker, but even like you can't have nicotine in your system and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
um,
like they want to make sure like you're gonna be like good to go,
yeah, right.
not
Yeah.
like eliminate as many potential risks as
Exactly,
possible.
exactly. I'll shout out Malcolm because he's like 40 days away from getting his surgery. He was a guest on my
Oh,
podcast, so it's like he's doing the countdown
oh my
on social media.
goodness.
So he's
Oh,
almost
that's
there.
exciting.
Yeah, and he's hella excited. So that's dope for him. So eventually, Kate, you'll get there
I'll
too.
get there. I just know that apparently you have to have like the recovery process. That's the big thing I've been looking into because it's like I'll definitely need to know the beforehand and the during, but like the recovery process I've heard is kind of brutal. Because
Yeah,
essentially you're just laying in your bed with as many potential pillows as you can get a hold of.
yeah. It'll be worth it though. It'll be
Oh
worth
yeah,
it for sure.
100%.
Have you expressed this to your family and stuff too? Like how have like your identity and stuff, and how did that come? How did that transpire?
It started like I think I started with the very simple one where it was just like, "Hey, I think I'm asexual."
Hmm.
It was one of those things where like it was another one of those things like in school where they went through sex ed and they're like, yeah, I know that seems gross and weird to you, but eventually you guys won't find it weird. Like you guys are gonna grow out of that. And then I like never did. Like I'm just like, yeah, that's a part of life, but like I don't care.
Yeah.
That was my thought process. I was like, that's I don't know, maybe that's normal. And then I learned that they're like, actually, that's a thing that you can be here. And so that I feel like was the easiest one and the first one that kind of came out. And
That's the first time I've heard that one.
really,
It's usually bisexual, so it's like, but
yeah,
asexual. I like. Yeah, it's the first time.
yeah, I think it was just because it was just like I never felt like an immediate like intense attraction that people always describe.
Hmm.
That's never happened to me. Like definitely if I see an individual that like looks nice, I'm like, oh, that's a nice looking person. But like some people they talk about like this need to act on it or something like that, and it's like I don't like
Yeah.
and like it goes a little bit further into that, but it's just like I don't know.
How did they feel
That's
when you
that's
told them?
uh I think they just wanted to be they wanted to be supportive. I think to an extent that made sense because at the time, probably like a couple of years before that, I had really become comfortable of being like, well, I'm just going to be alone and I'm fine with that. Like I don't want to deal with the responsibility of like taking care of like being with another person, which that thought process has since changed. Um, because I'm just much more comfortable of who I am with a person. So like that idea of like being with having a partner has opened up dramatically since then. So I want to say for the most part, I think they just were supportive that I was finding something that made me comfortable as far as my identity. I think I did said I was just kind of like a non-binary was like the next thing. They were my immediate family for the most part was supportive, but then they're like, but we're not telling grandparents or anything like that.
Mm.
So like to this day, my grandparents just think I'm just like a cis straight woman that's looking for a man or that's looking for a man to eventually become to get married and like have kids and stuff like that. That's kind of their idea of
Mm.
who I am. And then like I feel like nowadays, because it's like I don't owe people an explanation or an update as to who I am. I'm just me, and I know how I identify, and like they don't need to know every single detail of how I identify. So it's kind of I think that's kind of where it's been left out, and I think they are probably fine. There again, it's like as long as you're not purposely hurting anyone or anything, who cares?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's good that your parents were just like okay with it, but not the fact that they wanted to hide it. But um,
That's the I think that's the only like if we had to take a point off, that's where I'm kind of like,
yeah, it just shows like they're not fully comfortable, or maybe I don't want to speak like that, but it just feels, I'll say feels like it would be like they're not fully comfortable with who you are to be able to like be excited for you and share that. Um,
yeah, I know they put it under the guise of like, well, we want to make sure you still have like a good relationship with your grandparents and stuff like that. And like I will say to an extent I understand where that thought process is coming from, but at the same time it's like this is who I am. It's kind of like it's also like, well, what are we gonna do when it gets to a point? Like, let's say I do get a girlfriend, like that's gonna be super confusing for them, or maybe not, or maybe I get, a boyfriend, or just a partner, and then like they're using like non-binary pronouns, and so then we go to the family dinner. What are we going to do at that point? I think is that's
yeah.
my it feels like just a band-aid that's not going to really
Hmm.
address what as things go down the line.
Um, so when you came out to your family and like you're letting them know about this, and your grandparents really not knowing. What's your culture like with your family? Like you said, you're biracial. So, what is your race?
Yeah, so I am um as far as I know, because it is part of what's just been told to me. At least as for my African side, I am Kenyan. And then for my more Caucasian side, it is majority Sicilian, and then it's after that it becomes German, and then after that it's just like random English, I believe. So that's from my understanding, that would be my full breakdown of of myself
So
culturally.
you got I see. I don't even know what I never did, like my I asked my grandparents like what's like the tree or whatnot, but they don't know like
Yeah.
that like what part of Africa are we from? Like
What part? Yeah.
they don't know that. So that's cool that you like know like specifically
Yeah,
Kenya. Like
I'm very fortunate for that. But I believe it was because that my because like my biological father is not in the picture. I was an unknown accident. My mother didn't find out until she was like early in her second trimester. Um, so I guess that relationship was already like gone at the point. So, but I believe that individual had a very strong like he was like I always say like fresh from Kenya type of thing. Like he was living here, but like he still had family living in Kenya type of thing. That's what's been told to me. Um, so
so you said you're Caucasian, so is your mom white or
yes, My whole
okay?
my whole family is because I have now I have two half siblings, like my grandparents, at least on my mom's side, they're both they're like my grandfather, he's like 100% Sicilian that we found out a couple of years ago. And then my grandmother is the one that has the majority German as well as like the small bit of English.
Okay. So you grew up around just white people then, like
I did.
your
I
fam.
did. Yeah.
Okay. And oh god, how was
I
that
did.
like? How is that like for you? Like growing up
I
in that environment, going to school in that environment, and coming home, and like how were those conversations? And
I think like I give them the rightful credit that they did the best that they could with the information that they could receive, because that's not easy. Like I knew as a child that was not easy. I know now that it was not easy. That is a very difficult thing to have to go through, and I know for them it was probably difficult of like also just like knowing like how do we support like in those very specific situations. I know for me, I remember there would be times where it's just like, well, people just don't get it. They just don't get it, or there was some frustrations, and I don't think it was necessarily direct. Like I wouldn't say that they were directed at like family or anything. I think it was one of those things where it's just like, just almost like the world is like, why don't people understand, like very like in like throughout my childhood, there was a very strong desire to have someone that, a friend or or just some sort of support system that was like me. And that was very hard, and just something that I didn't quite fully get. Like in school, like because it's like circle was predominantly white, um, we had a handful of people that were not. And we would have moments where it was just like us, and we'd be like, this is hard, isn't it, guys? And we'd be like, yeah, it sucks. And we would start unloading about the horrendous stuff that we were having to deal with, and it would just be these like pockets in time where we were just like, yeah, this sucks.
yeah,
I think it's definitely better now because like I have like friends that are people of color. I have friends that are queer. Like it's a lot different now. Like that's a support system exists, and I live in communities and I work around communities where there's just a little bit more of that awareness. But yes, growing up in that situation was like I know that there were situations, of course, to be living in, but like there was some moments where it was kind of tough. A lot of people thought I was just adopted because I was very dark as a child. Like I was so dark. Like as a kid, you would almost just think I was just an African American kid, and that I had like two African American parents. But then they would see my mom walk in, and they go, "Were you adopted?" And I was like, "No." And like it would be just my mom. They wouldn't even see both of my parents. They would just see my mom, and they're like, "You're adopted," because they're like, "There ain't no way. There ain't no way that woman gave birth to you."
Yeah. Have you had like you said you give them grace, and I assume you give your mom grace as well. Like that's what you're referring to as well. Have you
Correct.
had conversations with her specifically, just like about what you were dealing with in school, or how can you was your mom like trying to find people like connect you with people? Was she doing anything like to help you navigate that, or was it just like it just went unsaid?
I think so. There was it depended on the time, like the time of my life. I believe very young there was an attempt. She told me a story of there was a strong attempt to try and get that type of support system for me at a very early age, but apparently either the group or the individual that she was with was like that particular mom was just like, yeah, I mean, this kid can come over, hang out with us and stuff like that, but your other kid will not. And like my half sibling is very pasty. She is very she's white, and so they didn't want her around particularly. And my mom was just like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. You're not going to alienate my one, like my other kid. Like you're going to take both. Um,
Why? Okay, because it was like a babysitting situation, or like was it like you were just trying to be friends with a specific person? Like,
I'm not, I mean, I'm really not certain like the full details of
mm-hmm,
it. I just know it was a situation where it would have been like we would have hung out either like a central location or like at one of their homes, and like I would have then had like a group of, of just other black people to know and hang out with.
mm-hmm,
But I guess because the one I'm going to assume just mother was just like, well, we don't want your white kid with hanging out with us. I think that just really struck a chord with my mom that just was like she was just not okay with it.
mm-hmm. So that was just
Uh,
like the one time that you like can recall, though. That
I think for early, um, I know there was there was also a huge concern once I moved to Circle because they already knew like this is going to be predominantly white. But the issue is that we moved from to Circle from the Wichita School District because me specifically was being horrendously bullied for like various other reasons that had nothing to do with my race, but it was very intense to where it was like where like teachers and were just allowing me to just like not have to be in class. They'd be like, "Well, get your work done, um, but also you can do it in the library if you want."
yeah,
So there was that element. And then in high school, like high school was pretty rough racially speaking, and so I come home and be like, yeah, I'm just really mad because of this thing, this, or it's like it'd be like this one substitute. My mom actually got a substitute apparently fired
mm,
because of the experience I had had. It was a situation where I genuinely felt like this one instructor was picking on me and my other at the time friend who was also biracial, but she was part white. She was also, part Mexican, and so it was something that had really frustrated me. I was just like, I don't understand why he's picking us out, and also just dismissing everything we were saying at the same time. Um, and I guess she got so mad. that she like threatened lawyers, and yeah, I never saw that substitute again.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I asked that because I feel like now as an adult and we see like um what people who are in just like interracial couples,
Hmm.
um like that's something to be mindful for their kids'
Hmm.
sake. And not just like after the fact, like if a baby could come, but just like even before, like, okay, knowing the culture, like what what they go through, or just like not just doing it without like seeing them for them in a sense.
Hmm.
Just because like that's a huge, like there's a lot of um, people in Kansas specifically that just like are biracial. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think it's a good thing to talk about, just like with parents understanding, just like their child, like you obviously had to deal with a lot on your own,
Hmm.
growing up, and having to navigate that and just like figure out your place and like your space, and just wanted like that representation, wanting that
Yeah.
representation and wanting to be seen, um, and not getting that at school, not getting that at home,
Hmm.
and that can be difficult to navigate. Um, and
Yeah.
again, like for me, like I didn't have that experience just like at home. It was just only at school. So I can like it was hard for me already just being at school. Um so I'm just like picturing just like, and like I just know like it was really difficult to do. So
Yeah. Yeah.
goodness.
I mean, I'm here, so, and I think I am a stronger person because of it. Uh, um, but yeah, I think it is important to always look back and say and go and be willing to say like, wow, that was messed up, because I think that shows that it shows a certain type of mental growth. But like there can also be a sense of closure of you going like, um, hey, this was my, ABC was really like that shouldn't have been a thing. I mean, like students should not have been able to say the N word and not be punished for it. Like to me, uh, like they should not have gone unpunished for that. But because I'm able to sit here and say that and be like, hey, that was an injustice, in a way, there is a decent amount of closure for me of being like, well, they were just wrong. um I'm valid, and I'm valid for feeling the way that I was valid at that time.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. That and yeah, another like I'm just there's like a lot of things that like I have questions for and stuff like that, but I think that has to be like a different Queen Talk segment
It might have to be, yeah.
on that specifically. But I thank you for sharing and
Yeah, I mean, that is just such that was well, that was a huge part before like being like really going into my queer identity, because it's like, well, they didn't know the queer identity, but you just have to have eyes that work to to kind of know what my racial like I have a racial experience, right? um but I think
yeah, yeah. And are you pretty close with your parents and stuff too, or
I would say it's definitely drifted as time has gone by.
hmm,
It's to that point where I'm kind of like, well, I will address that type of situation, those scenarios when it does happen, because who knows what type of mental state everyone will be in at that point. Maybe
hmm,
everyone's grown and progressed and we don't need
yeah,
to make it a big deal. Maybe there's been a little bit of regression. So it's one of those things where it's just like, I know that I'm happy where I'm at, and I'm just going to keep doing what keeps me happy and safe.
yeah.
And then everything else can be addressed at another point.
Yeah, I love that. And you say you're happy in a good place right now, but you mentioned earlier in this podcast you were down in a mental state, just like mentally wise. And I want to know like what got you out of that point? Like what helped you get to this happy place now that you're in?
It's so That's such an interesting question just because like I've thought about it so many times. I would say probably from 2016 to I would say about 2023, it was an on again, off again kind of really low lows and then just kind of like okay moments where it's just like I felt like I was just barely managing. What it's I don't know. So part of me feels like it's kind of ridiculous, but I mean, it's not. It's what got me through. Um, I had moved out. I got my own apartment, and 2 months in of not being near a dog, I adopted my new fur baby, Chi Chi. She was when I adopted her, she had heartworms. She also had kennel cough.
Hmm.
Um, which I do not recommend for first time for first time like dog owners. Like if you're owning a dog for the first time by yourself, do the research, try and get a like a breed. I recommend try to get a breed that you can research consistently, and maybe not like a mutt where you're talking about maybe a roulette of medical issues or something like that. But you know that's the side rant there. Um, but I had reached this extremely low, like to a point like I was just like it was to a point it was the strongest that in like the longest time where I was just like it's just time to end it all. But I literally had to tell myself, like, what kept me from it is just like, who's going to take care of that dog that you like? I mean, there was a strong force, like, otherworldly type of thing that was telling me that I had to get this particular dog. I always tell, it's like the story of getting her. I was like, at the time there wasn't like this very like immediate bond of like oh my gosh like you see almost like in movies or like even like clips you see on social media of like oh yeah I think this dog just adopted me right now type of thing, but there was just a strong like you have to adopt this dog, you have to take this one home, you have to take care of her. And so I did, and because of that, when I was at that low point and my brain's going who's going to take care of that animal if you go, who is like that dog is not going to be taken care of because like my family's not going to take wasn't going to be able to take her in due to them having other dogs that just don't play well with other dogs.
Hmm.
And so so that was like this weird like I needed to reach out, I needed to get help, and I needed to be willing to work on myself specifically so that this dog could become better. And that was just the starting point of me getting myself fixed up and going to therapy regularly, um, and just working through things, and then also putting that any type of energy I could muster into help taking care of her. And from then on, it's been so much better. I
Good.
get stressed out, but I don't think it's the end of the world. It's like like my ability to manage stress, my ability to also just enjoy myself. Like it is like I think it's like it's almost insane to think like just how different. Like I feel like I'm living in a different world almost. Like even with the stuff like, this new administration cycle, like is it stressful? Absolutely. Can I spiral for a moment? Yes, but it's literally just a moment, and I'm just like, well, I can't control about this.
Yeah.
Are we going to panic over something I can't currently control right now? Absolutely not. Let's put our energy towards something I can control or something like that.
Yeah. Uh, Thank God for Chi Chi.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can literally.
I'm glad you're here today. I think I wanted to ask that question for one's mental health awareness month too, and just like it's heavy. It can get heavy at times, and the younger generation, just like with everything going against them, I know like it could be heavy for them too. So just like figuring out different ways that help you get just make it a day by day situation. And for you, it was your dog, and
Yeah.
but for them, it could be whatever it may be. But just like figuring out that's something that gets them.
Yeah, I always say like it doesn't matter how small, how simple it is. If it's just that feeling you get when you see the sunrise, or that feel, or like the enjoyment you get, like making a baked potato, or watching that one show that, gives you joy. If that's what keeps you going, then that's what keeps you going. There's never a judgment on that. It doesn't matter how small, it doesn't matter how large it is. Like if that's what hold on to that because it's not ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I agree. I agree. And we all go through it. We all have mental, like, our down moments. Like, it's something, and like you said, you just have to find that one thing that just like, all right, this will keep us going. This will keep us
Yeah,
going.
and it's not a one shoe fits all. I think that's also another thing that sometimes people don't understand, maybe like don't understand maybe, and it could be just like a combination of like of where they are in this moment in time, where they just feel like, well, I have to take medication, I have to do therapy, I have to, walk outside 30 minutes a day 30 minutes a day, or I have to be doing healthy food, so that like they feel there's this need of like like I have to be at this benchmark to be considered like healthy, mentally healthy. But it's like, hey, if you get out of bed, if you brush your teeth, at least some of them, like that's also huge. It's like you don't have to do everything.
Hmm.
Um, you just have to do enough that gets you to a point where you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like I said, started this podcast out like you're artistic too. How did your art play a role in this, if any at all, like during your journey?
I think it should have, like, it's another one of those things where like my art should have been an indication that I needed help, because
Mm,
there were some times where it's like this is a little dark and it's gloomy, it's sad, you know. But then I think it eventually, like, it continued to be an outlet for me. But then once I started going in the framework of I'm working on myself, like I'm like it just like you could almost like mark kind of the changes of like, oh, now we're trying, like it was just different. Like it's hard to explain because I think of like all the different mediums, like music wise, and then like painting, or then like cooking. I consider that an art style as well, of how of like what I decided as important, or what I decided that would then be considered like good. Maybe at first it was just like, well, it has to look or sound the most beautiful. It has to, but then it changed to something where like it needs to almost like it has to serve a purpose type of thing. Almost changing from superficial to like now functional. So it's
mm,
like my meal, like meal wise, it's like, well, meal wise, it needs to look pretty. It has to look appealing to others. Now I'm just like, hey, look is great, but also like, what type of flavor journey am I going into? I don't know. There's become a deeper passion of like actually creating art. Like when I'm creating a game, like what story am I trying to tell, and how am I trying to tell it? Where it used to be more like, well, I don't know, let's just make a fun level game that has this type of style into it, and it has to have XYZ. Where it's like now it's just like, I want to organically have something to share with people. And I hope that makes sense to all the artists out there, or just people that are listening. It's just a very different mindset that I now have.
yeah, I love it. I love the artistic. I feel like people that are artistic too, just like are like the creative side of things. You said like you make games and making it transpire into something that you're feeling, and you said you create games too. So like, do you
Yeah.
actually make games?
I do. It's one of those, and I think that's one of my like favorite because like I at times when things aren't working out, like I usually take care of like designing the whole like I cr- I do the big designing of like, okay, this is what this game is, this is what it needs to do, this is what it needs to sound like, this is what it needs to look like. So I'll design it, and then I'll most of the time I'm usually helping with like the visuals or the audio production of it. And so I love like that type of medium because I it's something that I allow myself to get angry at. And I think, it's kind of like, oh, this thing, like, oh my gosh, this thing, it doesn't quite sound right. I've been listening to the same like chord progression for like 5 hours. But it's like, but I'm not wanting to quit at it. It's just like it ignites this kind of like positive anger passion of just like of just like I have something in here, I have to get it out here. Um, I don't know. It's so much fun. I think everyone should try that at least once. Um, Especially like, well, because like I do game jams, and game jams is like you create a demo of a game in like 48 to 72 hours. It's like creating some sort of product in a very short period of time. So much fun.
I've
As
never
long
heard of
as you're
that.
like, oh my goodness. It's like that's where I like really got into making games is because you got to test all your skills in a very short period of time. You get to work on teamwork because like a lot of sometimes you get to work with people you've never really met. It's such a great exercise, but then it's also like you can just have that opportunity to just throw those ideas out like like in a product, and then like you get to see like, oh, did this do well? Do I like it? Do I want to add more onto it? Or is it just one of those things where it's just like, okay, this was a fun little experimentation?
And you can actually just like release a game too if it's good and you like it, and then people can play it. Or
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, if, like, let's say you create the game and you're just like, wow, I'm really vibing with this. Let's take it back. Maybe let's fix what we already put out and then like work on getting a full game. I want to say there definitely have been some that have turned into full games. It's been a hot minute since I've really been in the sphere of like video games that have been in game jams that have turned into like full-fledged video games, because a lot of them turn out to be like indie games because it's like it's the same group, or like like one to like five people that were in the game jam that then created the game.
cool game jam. If you're a gamer, hey, you might want to check that out. Never heard of that though. And gamer, do you see like a lot of other black people in the gaming world that you're in?
You know, sometimes it's hard to tell because like
Uh,
everyone a lot of those people don't like showing their faces, myself
uh,
included.
yeah, I
um
noticed that. I noticed that.
yeah,
I try to do my research. Like, yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
cannot find them. I cannot.
yeah, yeah, that's, I think, I mean, that's from very past, of course, experience in high school and stuff like that. But um so like they're definitely out there. It's hard to find them. When you do, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I didn't, it's almost like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that we are out, like others are out there, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I think there's also kind of that pressure when there are so few of us of like, well, now I have to create something
Mm,
that like represents my culture. Um, I will say I think it's grown, like the population has grown and been more diverse. I do think a lot of times though, when it comes between the two, it's either like if you're someone like me that both has like queer identity and like multiracial identity, there's like a push to do something that's more within the queer and not necessarily. And maybe that's just like from my sphere of influence, that's just what happens to come to me. Um, it is very rare that I find entertainment, gaming, like indie games that do. I know they're out there. It's just maybe more difficult to find them.
yeah, I game too, a little bit. I mean, I got my group of people, but not like that. You know, like there's a difference. You're a gamer,
Yeah.
gamer. Like I do it every now and then. You know, I'm having fun with some friends. We on COD or something like that. But you're actually
Yeah.
like there's different levels to
I,
gamers.
I,
That's why.
I, I am in a little bit deep.
Yeah, yeah. But that's awesome though. Like like I'm a little older, but our generation, like games were, you know, people weren't making money off of games and stuff. Like now, I'm like, it wasn't something that's like you should get into this because you can make money off of this. It was like stay off of
It's
these games.
profitable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially now with like nowadays, like you could be one person and you could create a whole you can create essentially an empire. Early 2010s, I would say like 2013, 2014, like a lot of impactful games came out. One that I really think of is Toby Fox's Undertale. um, that's a massive indie game, all created by one person, right? Or at least majority one person. I like Five Nights at Freddy, but I have the movie poster right here. I mean, that started as an indie game created by one person, and now it is a massive, massive franchise. You know, books, now movies. I think the second one's coming out this year. You know, kind of that idea of like, well, you don't have to be Blizzard, Activision. You do not need to be like EA Studios. You don't have to be this huge corporation or a part of that huge corporation to be a part of this really fun industry.
Yeah. And I think that ties into like a lot of things these days. Like, you know, with like the movies and stuff, like you can get your movie out on Tubi. Like if you have an idea, like you can
Yeah,
there's other platforms like to be like an independent person trying to make it. Like there's other ways to navigate, not just like in the gaming world, but just in production as well. And
that
anything.
is exactly. I mean, you could probably go on YouTube right now. There are so many indie like indie creations of of shows um there I recently watched something just because we're talking about video games. There's a show that's on there called Indie Cross. It only has 2 episodes. The quality though is insane, as well as the story so far is being really fun. And it's just on YouTube, and that's 100% free. And I believe that's still an avenue where they're able to make money. There's so much of that on YouTube. It's almost like this is unreal that I just get to watch some of this stuff just for free because of the
Yeah.
quality. And
Yeah.
just like now we have that technology where you can do something that amazing, and you have that access to then just push it out on such a large audience. It's just such, that's the cool thing about technology now.
Hmm.
Like focusing it on a more positive spin. It's like that's just so exciting that that's something that we can do.
Yeah, and it's just like a lot of people don't stay up with the times and stuff, or just like even want to be like they always just feel like they're left out when it's there. You have to just like stay up with it, just like with this
Hmm.
AI thing. Like
Yeah.
it's know about it, get to know it, utilize it,
Yeah.
um, and because it's here, it's not going anywhere.
No,
Um,
and it's only going to continue to get better. And
mhm,
there are uses for it. w- I do fully believe that there are reasons to use it, and I feel like there are ways we can incorporate it in a very productive way. Um, I just think there is just a lot of right now of people just, well, let's use it as a shortcut to take out a person.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. These stores are getting the employees are getting slimmer and slimmer with this the checkout. So yeah,
Yeah.
in different ways for sure. It can be scary, but you just have to like tap into like the good things and like because it's not going anywhere. So you can
E-
just sit there and mope about it or utilize it for your benefit.
And it's so funny because we're having this conversation now about AI, and it's how it's we're in the Wild West. It's going to have its uses. We're just not, we just don't know what it's going to be. We don't have it regulated yet. Literally what? 2, 3-ish years ago, that's what people were talking about cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency isn't still regulated, right?
Hmm.
Um, but it has now calmed down to where people are like, okay, let's try and like now it feels like there is this attempt to legitimize cryptocurrency. So maybe in the next few years we are going to see a lot of regulations and then people, using that.
Right. Yeah.
And probably before that we're probably talking about the use of cell phones, maybe, but
Hmm.
and then I mean
Use of
before that.
internet. Bro.
Exactly, internet, like literally the internet. Like how many
Hmm.
stories out there do we know of like chat forums that were just going wild because it was just the internet. The idea of like monitoring was just not really there, like the wild, wild west of the internet. And who like and there was probably talks about like the automation, like when they started doing automation in like the early, I want to say like 1900s, when they started incorporating machines. Everyone was like, oh, they're just going to take our jobs and stuff like that. Like it's been
Yeah.
a consistent conversation of like the next new thing is going to like ruin us, it's bad, and it's like, well, it's not. We're going to continue doing it, we just need to like, you know maybe rein it in a little bit, right?
Definitely regulate some things.
Mhm.
That's not a bad thing too. Before it does get out of hand. I don't know if you watch Black Mirror, but I'll be like, Black Mirror be telling us some things that we need to be looking at closely. Like,
Probably be.
okay,
Hmm. We got to be paying attention a little bit, yeah.
yeah, most definitely, most definitely.
Thank you.
This was a great conversation, and I feel like you can relate to people that haven't even like this is a whole new thing. That's why like everybody's story is so unique and different to their own. Like,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't be afraid to share it because you just never know like who it can relate to. Like this, like the gaming situation, like you being a gamer
Yeah.
in the world and identifying how you identify and just like how you navigated that, just like being asexual and then just like transpiring and just what you've overcome and like your background and like where you are now and the growth. I think it can relate to a lot of people, and hopefully if those that are listening, if you're like struggling right now, just if you got anything out of this, just knowing, just like figure out that one thing for you and how that works for you, because like Kay said, it's not one size fits all. So yeah, I thank you so much for being a part of this podcast and being vulnerable and
Yeah.
sharing your story. What would you like to leave the audience with though? Like, is there any final words that you like to leave the audience with?
I think finding, even though it is a cliche, finding that joy in the small thing, no matter how small it is, goes miles. I think when, like, I know we have a lot of things that are going on in our lives, and um, maybe we feel pressure to fit a certain mold or hit certain milestones, whether it's like knowing what your identity is, or feeling, again, like we were talking about earlier, having those benchmarks in your mental health. I mean, but if you find this one small thing, and as long as it's not hurting you or hurting others, like, I would say hold on to that, because you will be surprised on how far that's going to get you through. Always be willing to find new ways to grow, but like as long as you have that one thing, that's going to be enough. And I think, um, even though it's like generic, in a way generic, I think you'll understand it once you get to a point where you're just like, wow, that really did actually help me get a long way through. If you know,
Definitely.
you know, type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Did you enjoy this podcast? Did you enjoy the conversation?
Yes, I'm one of those people where I'm very nervous, but I think like, um, I mean, the structure is really great. Just a conversation really helps, but I really liked it.
All right, good. I don't usually ask that like and put it out there, but I just like want other people to know like yeah, come on, share your story too. Like it is just like people get scared
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't have nothing to say, or it's just like you got something
Right.
to say.
You do have something to say, and maybe it's going to change how you would say it maybe today or tomorrow or even the day before. I mean, that was something like I think I shared it to you when you had approached me. I was like, yeah, my friend told me that I should probably reach out and do it, but I was like, ah, no one wants to hear my story. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
exactly.
But
That's
it's
why I brought
like,
it up.
exactly. But it's like, as long as there's like, because like the likely, as long as it can change at least one person, I think there'll be people that at least a group of people that may resonate with the story. But if there's like at least one person that feels impacted in a way, that's enough for me. That's all I'm looking for, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's what I said. Like here on Queen Talk too. Like if just like one listener comes across on YouTube and is just like typing up, trying to find them, and something to representation like this, and you've been searching for that representation for yourself, just like
Mhm,
um, throughout your life, and that's what I'm trying to bring for others because I didn't have that growing up myself. So that's why
mhm,
Queen Talk was created because I'm trying to find people that look like me, identify,
mhm.
and feel the same things I feel, and resonate with me. So that's why
Exactly.
I do this. And so yeah, like you said, just one person just needs to be able to hear this and connect. So thank you again, Kate, for being vulnerable, opening up and sharing your story for the whole world to hear, like, and be seen.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. Again, this has been um very very easy and very enjoyable. So yeah, thank you. I'm super happy to have done
Uh,
this.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys for listening and tuning in to this episode again. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe button, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think of this episode. I'm curious, how many people have gotten their hair touched? That's what I'm curious about too. Like,
Yeah.
is that a thing for just like all of us, or what? Like, I could definitely relate to that. It's so annoying. Stop touching people's hair. It's not a thing that you should do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, make sure to check out also queentalk.com. Look out the revamp. It's a pretty website. And like I said, your picture might be on there. Check it out. Check out that. Check out the merch. But as always, family, friends, strangers, love and be nice.